Well, there you are, everyone. That's what the sign says. Welcome to Blundell Park. And Rowley Godfrey and I are sat here after Grimsby's last game of the season, 4-0 victory against Southend United. But as Rowley said to me earlier, it's rather a hollow victory, because despite the fact that it's Town's biggest victory of the season, it's also seen as relegated from Division 1 to Division 2. This is going to be the highlights tape, despite all that, of season 96-97. You won't have so much chit-chat from me and this fella on my left-hand side, because what we'll do is introduce the season to you, end the season for you, and in the meantime you'll have the highlights, and there were plenty of them, from the season. Brian Laws, the old manager, we call him the old manager because of course he had such a terrible time at the end of last season, winning only a couple of games out of however many. He had his altercation with Ivano Benetti, offered his resignation, it wasn't accepted. He then carried on till the end of the season. We thought, well, probably something's going to happen. Well, what happened is that the board of directors offered him a 3-year contract. Now, like it or not, you've got to say to yourself, was that the right thing to do? But he got it. But it was Brian Laws who was in charge at the beginning of the season. His signings didn't really inspire, although I'm glad to say that people like Tommy Widrington probably did win people over a little bit at the end of the season, because he obviously did show what he could do. Kingsley Black, whatever. Nicky Southall, the previous signing, moved him inside of midfield, played an awful lot better. But Brian Laws couldn't keep things on an even keel. We had some very, very bad results. Defeats at home by Oxford, by Oldham, as you said before, Portsmouth in the very first game of the season, and in the end something had to go. It was Brian Laws. I will say that the board, I think for everybody, dithered somewhat in deciding what they wanted to then do. The dithering did come to an end, and Kenny Swain, the number 2, finally ended up in charge. He thought the players that we had here were good enough to get us out of the mire, but basically from Christmas onwards we were in the bottom 4 or 5, and we always struggled to get away from there. And I'm afraid what we've got to say, Rowley, is the inconsistency of the results really proved our downfall. We never did get away from those bottom positions, and I'm afraid we've paid the price for it.
Well, we never strung a run together, did
no,
we? You know, which is very important. But I do think the beginning of the end was the Benetti incident of the season last.
I'm sure.
And I think a lot of things went on after that. And with hindsight, I think Brian should have gone at the end of the season to give a new manager a full start.
Yes.
When Kenny took over, I think the boat was absolutely rocking, and I don't think he really had a chance, quite honestly, and it proved that we never put a run together, and we were, as you say, we're now in the second division.
So it's all to start for next season. There's a lot of queer old trips to go on. Plymouth, Gillingham, Walsall, York, wherever. We can be flippant and say we're in with all the also-rans. It's not the case. There's a lot of good clubs in the second division, but we've got to get things right next season from minute 1. There's no question about that, because we've seen the effects of what goes wrong and the results of that from when things don't go right from the off from this season.
Well, you've only got to look at Notts County, John.
That's right.
They are now in the third division, and people think that we are just going to step straight back up.
It doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen in these days. You know, in this day and age.
There's an awful lot of work to be done in the close season. Whether or not Kenny Swain, we don't know. We're talking a little bit on emotion at the moment at the end of the season after this last game. We don't know whether Kenny's going to be in charge, but there's got to be real changes here of one description or another.
Easy to say sack the manager,
sack the manager, sack the board,
as if that's going to change everything overnight, and it won't. If Kenny takes over, and I quite honestly, I like the man. I think he will do, and you've got to give him a full season and let him run the job. And he definitely needs players, and they definitely need some new faces in the side, John, and that goes without saying. And the thing is, are you going to keep young Oster? Are you going to keep Clive Mendonca?
That's right. You've got Handysides coming back into the fray again.
But it's going to be a long, hard season, I'll tell you, and it's going to be a very hard time to even think about getting back in the first division.
Well, as you rightly said, Rowley, we do have an awful lot of good players. Whether or not those players can knit together to make themselves a good squad next season is another matter. You'll now see what we believe to be the highlights of the season. There's also some damn lowlights in here as well. There's no question about that. But you'll see as much of the season as we have been able to put together, and I think special thanks must go there to Martin on camera,
Absolutely.
who has done the donkey work and has been the techno freak behind this all, to Graham Shearsmith alongside him, who of course has been our facts and figures man throughout this
and also
season.
commentator and
And
cameraman.
also commentator and cameraman when called upon as well.
Yeah.
So these are the people whose faces you don't necessarily see. So I think an awful lot of thanks there.
And Martin, I don't think has missed a goal yet. He's been pretty close.
We've been wanting him to, you know, but he won't do it.
He's been close.
He won't do it.
He's been close on a couple of times.
It's a great shame.
Yeah. We'll get him one day.
Yeah, we'll catch him. But I think that's enough chatter from you and me for the minute, mate.
I quite agree, mate.
Let's have a look at some action. Thanks a lot for having a look at this, as I always say. And we'll have a natter with you come later on when all the goals and bits and bobs are finished.
Fine.
Webb to Gallimore. Nice ball, Mendonca. Oh, just didn't take the ball with him. Webb's available. Webb at distance. Look at the square for Laws. Brian Laws blocked. Neil Webb got it back well. Kingsley Black, still Kingsley Black. Surely! Great save.
Kingsley Black did excellent. Wonderful turn in the box and first class work by the goalkeeper.
Good ball. Witherington straight through the middle, but Richards was back there. It was Neil Webb in actual fact, but he couldn't take it any more quickly because there are no players in support for him. Oh, good ball. Good ball. Look at this. Wants the early cross. He's skinned Laws. Brian Laws has given up. Pulls it back, surely. Yep. Steve Bolt. So as half-time approaches, it looks as though Wolves are going to go in holding a 1-0 lead. Steve Bull was a scorer 10 minutes ago. Nice finish. But they might think themselves as looking for offside, nothing given. Bull's made it too. It was a great ball, and Town well and truly caught out. Two men in on Roberts. Kingsley Black. Away from Romano. Wants to be looking up now. There's the cross. Wasn't a good. Oh, it's a poor one in actual fact. Didn't really look up, just hit it. Froggatt. Osborne. Thompson. Osborne. Thompson's available again. And again. Stronger than Town. Pull over the top. Great effort and a great save. But that's what Bull does. He starts his run early, just gets away from the centre half, and if the ball's played to him rightly, as it was for that second goal in the first half, that's what he'll do. He'll punish you. And thankfully we've got Jason Pearcey to thank for that save. Shakespeare under pressure. Peter Handyside. Good little ball. Neil Webb has moved into the space. Clips it, near post. Mendonca, good turn, surely now. Yes! Great goal. Good ball in, and a marvellous turn by Clive Mendonca. And it looks like Town was starting to get ready to make a substitution on the far side there, Rowley. But look at Bull pulling away at the far. Well in by Webb. Mendonca. Good skill. Good ball if it reaches. It's a great crossfield ball. Kingsley Black. Look at Gallimore going outside. Kingsley Black, not a good cross.
No, actually, we pulled Wolves apart in the halfway line, but once we started going forward, nowhere.
Well, Brian Law's absolutely left for dead there by Froggatt. Oh, look at this. Bull, 3-0. 3-1, should I say. But Brian Law's absolutely skinned by Steve Froggatt, and Steve Bull gets his hat-trick. Neil Webb. Richard Smith has to go square. Steve Bull almost getting a toe into that. Here's Gallimore. Mendonca can turn. Richards for once gave him a little bit of space. Neil Webb, square. Widdrington, push forward surely. Oh, what a poor effort. No offside, and he had an acre of space.
Well, that's the difference, you see. If that had been Steve